friends, and welcome back to my channel, Our Country-ish Acre. My name is Rachel and I'm a gardener growing here in Western Pennsylvania. For reference, that is growing zone 6A. With the holidays behind us, I know like many other gardeners, I'm eagerly awaiting for the arrival of springtime. Unfortunately, here in our area, that is still several months away, but that doesn't mean that there aren't some gardening related tasks that I can take care of now. So some of the things that I'm working on right now are I am finishing up my vegetable garden plans, and I'm working on finalizing the list of seeds that I need to start, which varieties, how many of each, all that good stuff. In my last video, I did share that one of my goals for 2026 was to grow as much from seed as I can. I'm not committing to 100% from seed just because I know there are a couple things that I want to purchase that I can't get my hands on seed because they're either patented varieties or the seeds are just tremendously expensive and not available to a home grower. But there was some interest in learning more about my seed starting methods and just seed starting in general. So I thought for the next few videos, I could chat about that process, what that looks like, just some seed starting basics, especially if you're a newbie to it. It can seem very, very overwhelming. I promise you, once you get the hang of it, it is pretty easy. I'm not going to say it's completely foolproof because even as an experienced seed starter, I still deal with my own issues. But once you get the basics down, it really isn't that difficult. For today's video, I wanted to talk about just the seed starting equipment that I use, what you will need to get if you want to follow along on this journey. And then I'm also going to talk about some companies that I usually order seeds from. And then lastly, I'm going to chat about just how you could store your seed packets in a way that keeps them organized. Let's jump into what equipment you will actually need if you're interested in seed starting. So I'm in my seed starting room right now, so I'm just going to kind of go through the list of everything that you'll need. You might have some of this already if you've given seed starting a try in the past. If not, make a list and go out there. And you definitely don't need the most expensive of each of these things, especially if you're just testing the waters. I would recommend starting with a cheaper option instead of just going full force. You are going to need cell plugs. So these are 6 cell plugs. These ones are some fun purple ones that I've purchased from Bootstrap Farmer. They are a little bit on the pricier side, but they are fabulous and phenomenal, and I cannot recommend them enough. If you have seen some seed like greenhouse kits in like home improvement stores or Walmart, you're probably really familiar with like the kind of cheap plasticky flimsy ones, and there's definitely nothing wrong with that. They'll work and do the job, but they're not going to last season after season after season. So these, and this is not sponsored, it's going to sound like a commercial, I'm sorry. I don't get any money from them. I just think they make a fabulous product. So Bootstrap Farmer, they make them with like some really heavy duty plastic, and I'm just going to demonstrate here. So I'm pushing and it's not going anywhere. You could not do that with some of those cheaper cell packs. They would just crush. So that's why these are just really great, and I would recommend them. I can't recommend them enough. So you're going to need some cell plugs, and then you're also going to need a tray. So this is a 10-10 tray. You're probably used to seeing like the longer rectangle ones. Those are just 2 of these put together. I wanted to use I purchased smaller ones because this time of year I'm not starting a big quantity of seeds, and I don't want to have a whole tray that's only filled up with like 2 or 3 cell packs. So I did end up buying these 10-10 trays, but I do have a lot of the 10-20 trays, which are just like it's 2 of these put together is what it is. But this fits 6 cell packs. And then you are also going to need a humidity dome. Now, these are also from Bootstrap Farmer. In fact, this was just a whole kit that I purchased. I got 4 of these like kits. So that would be plenty, especially if you're just starting from seed. But the reason I really like the Bootstrap Farmer ones is because you can see that they're very tall. So I can have the label in here with the cell pack, and the label is not going to touch the top of the humidity dome. With the, I think they're typically like 2 inches. I had a hard time putting my labels in because the humidity dome wouldn't sit nice in the tray. So these ones are really great for that. But again, use what you can afford, use what's available to you. But again, I can't recommend the Bootstrap Farmer ones enough. You will also need to get some bigger pots, especially if you're planning on starting anything like tomatoes or peppers from seed. You will need some bigger pots to bump them up from because they're going to grow and get too big for those 6 cell packs. So I have several different pot sizes that I choose to use. I've got, these are all Bootstrap Farmer. They're that really heavy plastic. So these are, I believe, 2.5-inch container. This is, I think, a 3.3-inch container, and then this is a 5-inch container. So depending on what I am starting, like tomatoes will go from the 6 cell, that smaller thing, to germinate, and then when they get bigger, I usually bump them up into this. And then depending on what our last frost situation is looking like, they might even go into one of these before they get planted out in the garden. Next, you are going to need labels. So I am switching back to these white plastic labels. I just find out of the options that I've tried that they work the best. So in the past, I did use like wooden popsicle sticks. Those tended to get moldy because they soaked up the water from the soil, and then they just got really yucky. And a lot of times the actual marker on the wooden popsicle stick would just get kind of smeared and illegible. So I stopped using those. For a while, I chose to use painter's tape, and I would just put it on the outside of the container and then write on that and then peel it off when I go to plant it out. You will also need a marker to write on your labels. I have switched to using, I think it's like called an extreme Sharpie, but it's like weather resistant, and I find that that works really well. Next, you're going to need a heat mat unless you're growing inside your house and your house is regularly kept between like 75 and 80, which I feel like most of us do not keep our houses that warm, but if you do, you could probably get by without a heat mat. Growing here in my basement, it usually stays about 55 to 60 degrees, which is pretty chilly for your seedlings. So that heat mat is just going to give the seeds a jump start on germination. Most seeds, once they germinate and get a little bit bigger, I do take them off the heat mat. There are certain seeds that I keep on a heat mat just because they do really need those warmer temperatures to grow. Lavender is one of those, rosemary is one of those, and peppers are another one that I typically keep on the heat mat no matter what size they are. The next piece of equipment that you'll need is some sort of shelving unit. So I really like using wire metal shelving because it's pretty inexpensive, they're easy to keep clean, and I can set the shelves at different heights. And another reason I like them is because it's easy to attach grow lights to them. Which brings me to my next point. You will need a light source of some kind. I choose to use just regular old LED shop lights. These are not specifically made for growing or seed starting or anything like that, although you can certainly find those types of products out there. I just think that the shop lights, they work fine and they're much cheaper, so that's what I'm going to continue to use. If you want to purchase a special grow light, by all means you certainly can. I just don't think it's necessary. Next, It goes without saying you're going to need some sort of seed starting or all purpose potting soil to actually start your seeds in. Now, there is a lot of information about soil and high quality versus maybe not so great quality soil. I would encourage you to do your research on that. This year, I am switching and just using an all purpose mix by ProMix. Now, the reason I chose to switch to this particular ProMix product is because I can use it for seed starting, but I can also use it for potting up larger plants and my dahlia tubers when the time comes. And it's not specifically for seed starting. It's it's a multi-purpose mix, so I'm kind of getting the best of both worlds there. The next item you will need is a fan of some sort. I use a tall oscillating floor fan, and I set it about 5 to 10 feet away from my grow rack and just let it breeze a couple hours each day once the seedlings get bigger. The reason you want a fan in your grow space is to move the air, to circulate it around to kind of reduce any mold or fungal type issues that you might have. It also simulates wind, so that is going to result in you having beefier, more robust seedlings ultimately. The last item I want to talk about is a timer of some sort. So I actually use a smart outlet, and I plug my power strip into the smart outlet, and then I plug my lights and all my seed mats and everything into the power strip. And then from my phone, I can set a routine for the lights, so they turn on every day at 6 a.m. and they turn off every day at 10 p.m. So that's 16 hours of sunlight that my seedlings are getting. If you are someone that can remember to turn off and on your lights, you definitely don't need a timer, but I really like the timer because then that's one less thing that I have to remember. So those are all the items that you are going to need in order to begin your seed starting journey. Next, I want to talk about the companies that I typically order my seeds from. This isn't a comprehensive list. This is just the places that I find myself ordering from year after year after year. I do place some one-off orders from some other companies as well, but these are I would say, companies that I order probably 98% of all of my seeds from. So my absolute favorite company is Johnny's. They are a phenomenal company. They have a large selection of flowers and herbs and vegetable seeds. They have berry plants that you can purchase too. They're just a really great company. There's a wealth of information on their website. It's really well done and put together. So I would highly recommend reaching out to them. Another company I like to order from is Pine Tree Seeds. They have a very large selection of vegetables and herbs. They do have some flowers as well. They have some kind of unique ones in there too, so I definitely recommend checking them out. For a beginner seed starter, I would also recommend checking out Burpee Seeds. I've always had really good germination with anything I've purchased from them. They are definitely geared toward a home gardener, a beginner gardener. They have some smaller seed packets, and a great thing about them is I have seen them offer seed packet sales several times throughout the year, so you can get a great deal on seeds and not have to spend a considerable amount. So I would definitely recommend checking them out too. Another company I really like to order from is Renee's Garden. Now, she doesn't have the biggest selection compared to some of the other suppliers I've mentioned, but what is offered is great. The varieties are wonderful. All the seeds have done really well for me as far as germination rates. And then, just as a bonus, their seed packets are some of the prettiest ones that I have seen. Now, these next two seed suppliers are where I typically source all of my flower seeds from. The first one is Swallowtail Garden Seeds, and I really like Swallowtail Garden Seeds because they have a lot of seeds that I can't usually find elsewhere. And they have a lot of varieties of those seeds as well. So, for example, petunias, and geraniums. I have a difficult time finding those pretty much at any other seed supplier, but Swallowtail carries them and they have such a large selection of those two plants in particular. They also have a lot of other flower varieties, both annual and perennial. So if you are looking at growing some flowers, definitely give them a try. And the last supplier that I typically order flowers from is called Select Seeds. They specialize in like antique, harder to find seeds, but they do also have a lot of modern varieties as well. They have a great selection of annuals, but an even better selection of perennial seeds. So if you are wanting to try flowers, definitely give them a look as well. So once your seed packets arrive in the mail, I'm definitely going to urge you to try and figure out an organization system before it gets too out of hand. Don't just keep stuffing them in the packets they come in. I have tried several different organization methods over the years, and I'm going to show you the one that really works well for me, especially for all my vegetables and herb seeds. And then I'm going to show you what I previously did for flower seeds, and then what I am going to try this year for flower seeds. So for my vegetable seeds, I use a photo organizer. I can't take credit for this idea. I saw it several years ago on social media, but it just works so well. You can get these photo organizers at Michael's, a craft store. I think you can probably purchase them on like Amazon as well, but they come in this like big suitcase looking thing, and then within this, they have these little smaller containers, and I have all of my vegetable seeds organized by variety. So I've got, for instance, my cabbage in one, my cucumbers, my tomatoes. So when it comes time to sow those, all I have to do is pull out this, and then it's just kept very nice and tidy. For my flower seeds, I have two different methods. The first one is a new one that I'm trying out this year. One of my friends on Instagram, she turned me on to this method. All of her flower seeds, she kept hers in little sandwich baggies, but she has them organized by when to start the seeds, which is a lot different than how my vegetables are organized. So I just had this very fancy cardboard container that I used, and I organized all of my seeds by when I need to start them. So all of the seeds that get winter sown are right here, and then all the 10 to 12 weeks are behind those, the 8 by 10s, 6 to 8 weeks, and so on and so forth. So I have them organized by when I need to start them. I'm excited to try this method out because I think it's just going to make me that much more efficient. Um, you know, when 10 weeks prior to the last frost rolls around, all I have to do is just grab all those seed packets and I don't even have to think about it. So I'm keeping most of my flowers like this. However, I also have a 5 by 7 organizer that I have some other seeds in here. Now, some of these seeds I have in here because they are like big seeds. For instance, sweet peas and nasturtiums. Those are bigger seeds that if I had all of them in this container as well, it would just get too big. Like they would just take up too much space. So I have opted to keep them in these bigger containers. These are like all my sweet pea seeds. The other ones that I'm keeping in here are the varieties that I just have a lot of. So those are all my zinnia seeds. It was easier for me to keep these separate from the cardboard box just because there are a lot of them. But I know that when it comes time to sow my zinnias, I have to go to this box instead. And same thing with my petunia. I have a lot of those in there, and snapdragons. Now, those aren't the only ways that you can organize your seeds. Those are just what I found work for me over the years. And like I said, I am really excited to be trying out the flower seed organizing by start date instead of variety. I'm really hoping that that goes well for me. If it doesn't, I'll just switch back to what I was doing last year, which was just to keep it by variety. But that's what gardening is. It's about trying new things, experimenting, and finding out what works for you. Thank you for joining me today, friends. I really hope that you have found this video helpful, and I hope it inspires you to want to start seeds yourself. As I mentioned, I am planning to do several more in-depth videos about seed starting as it gets time to do that. So if you want to grow along with me, I encourage you to get your own seed starting space set up. And if you have any questions, definitely drop them in the comments below.